Okay, we're all ready. Okay, at this time, we'd like to call the June 28, 2016 Local Planning Agency meeting to order. Can we have roll call, please?
Ms. Moore is absent. Mr. Pollack is absent. Mr. Wright?
Here.
Mr. Lopez?
Here.
Mr. Young?
Here.
Mr. Sheridan?
Here. And we apologize for the delay. We just want to make sure we had a quorum for you all. In lieu of our chair and vice chair being absent tonight, I have assumed the duties of chair tonight. Mr. Lopez will be taking on the vice chair role. First item agenda is going to be actually, if anybody has their cell phones, please mute them for us or turn them down so we don't have any interruptions. Our first item of business will be the approval of the minutes from May 24th, 2016. Has everybody had an opportunity to look at them? Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as is.
Mr. Lopez, motion to approve.
Second.
Mr. Young, second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion passed. Our next topic is public comment. Public comment is the opportunity for anyone in the audience to speak on any public meeting items that we have. All three items on our dais tonight are public meeting items. So if there is someone in the audience who would like to speak on that is not the applicant, they'll have their opportunity to present. This would be your time to come forth and speak to any one of those topics. Seeing none, we'll close the public comment section and we'll move on to our public meeting items. The first item is going to be resolution number 3216-16, Site Development Order 441-115, Hammock Park Amendment to Preliminary Subdivision Plan. Is the applicant here? Please come forward, state your name and address for the record, and then give us an introduction as to what you're looking for tonight and what we should be making our decisions on.
Fantastic. My name is David Evans. I'm with Evans Engineering, 719 Irma Avenue, Orlando, 32803. Thank you, Bill, for being a little bit late, because so was I, and I would have missed the whole thing. So thank you very much for that. We're here tonight to propose two minor changes to the preliminary subdivision plan for the Hammock Park project. If you're familiar with this project, over on the northeast side, it's actually under construction now. During the transfer from the ownership to Meritage Homes, Meritage Homes had a specific request for a pad width of 60 feet on these lots. Four of the lots, which include lot numbers 6, 9, 10, and 13, would have to normally impose a front setback on the sides based on the fact they're on a corner. And as you know, per the Land Development Code, if you have a lot that's on the corner and fronts two right-of-ways, that you use a front setback on each. So we have some previous deviations that included some front and side setback waivers that approved the original PSP. To get the 60-foot pad, what we're asking is that those four lots would achieve a 5-foot deviation from the 20-foot setback on a front setback to a 15 in order to justify the 60-foot wide pad. So you'll see the areas on the PSP sheet 2 that are clouded that include those four the requests. The second is the model homes were originally designated, I think, on lots 4 and 5, right. And they wish to move those two model home lots up to lots 1 and 2. So that's the two changes that we're requesting tonight on the PSP. No other changes to the PSP, no other dimensional changes or anything else. So I'm here to answer any questions on behalf of the applicant, Meritage Homes, and Don Beeger with Meritage Homes is also with us if you have any questions regarding the specific lot size width that we're requesting.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Any questions from the board? Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much.
This time we'll hear from staff's presentation.
Good evening, Chairman and members of the board. As the applicant just presented, this is a request to the LPA to consider an amendment to the approved preliminary subdivision plan for Hammock Park. It was previously approved on June 1st, 2015 by Resolution 2981-15. The Hammock Park PSP relates to 23 lots, single-family residence development, and the approved subdivision is located west side of Changri Lane Shangri-La Lane, approximately 227 feet north of Artesia. Approximately land area is about 8.74 acres, and as the applicant stated, the owner is Meritage Homes. As I said, the subject property is with the future land use of low-density residential, and is located in R1 zoning. And as previously mentioned, it was approved by City Council on June 1st, 2015. In the approved plans, the applicant proposed to build 23 single-family residences, and the location of the model homes and sale office was previously approved on lots 5 and 4. The PSP was approved with 2 deviations. One was the deviation to request a change to the front setbacks for building from 20 to 15, and garage setbacks from 25 to 20. These are for lots that were built with side yard facing garages only. And the second deviation is a deviation request to change the rear setbacks for building on lot 2 from 25 to 20. As the applicant stated, he is requesting this time to amend the PSP to allow the model homes to be relocated to lot 1 and 2 from the previously approved lots 4 and 5. And the applicant also requests the setbacks deviations from the front setback requirement from 20 to 15 on lots 6 and 10, the east side only, and lots 9 and 13, west side only. The deviation has been added to the amended SDO as deviation number 3, and it will read as follows. A 5-foot deviation to the minimum front setback to the east side only of lots 6 and 10, and west side only of lots 9 and 13, to allow those lots to have a minimum front setback of 15 feet. The proposed amendment development complies with policies of Land Development Code and Comprehensive Plan, and staff recommends that the LPA recommend adoption of Resolution 3216. This concludes my presentation. At this time, I'd be glad to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? Okay. This is a public meeting, so there is no public hearing, or public comments at this point. So at this moment in time, we can take a recommendation from the board.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Sheridan.
I'd like to make a recommendation to adopt recommendation of adoption of resolution number 3216-16 as written.
Okay. Second. Mr. Lopez, second. Is there any discussion on this matter? Okay, at this time, we'll call the vote. All those in favor, say aye. 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 All opposed? Motion passes 4-0. And apologize.
This item will be scheduled. Yes, sorry, I forgot to mention that. This item, it will be scheduled to go to City Council on June 18.
Thank you very much for adding that for me. Thank you very much. Good luck with the project. Next item on our agenda is resolution number 3226-16, Site Development Order 464-16, Dwell at Oviedo Preliminary Subdivision Plan. The applicant's here. Please state your name, address for the record, please.
All right. Chad Moorhead with Madden Moorhead and Stokes, 431 East Horatio Avenue, Maitland, 32751. What you have before you tonight is a project that was before you for zoning back in July of 2014, which you recommended approval for, and also the City Commission approved it in October of 14. What we have tonight is 296 apartment units with a clubhouse with pool and dog park. Includes parcel 3 and 4 of the subdivision that we're subdividing here. Approximately 13.39 acres for the approval that we're asking for tonight, and includes the north and south running public right-of-way that you can see with the little roundabout in the middle on the site plan, as well as the east-west running road. Also have Clay Chandler with me with the Klein Companies. He's a client on the project. And just ask that you guys would approve us tonight. Here to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, thank you. Is there any questions from the board? Sheridan? Lopez?
I'm going to refrain for right now.
Okay. Mr. Young?
One quick question. Has a photometric plan been considered at this point yet?
That's a
Or-
good question.
or
I don't
looked at?
remember off the top of my head.
No, photometric, it's not been.
It's not required.
I
it will
understand it's not
be
required. I was
for the
asking if
final.
it's
No,
been
no.
looked at yet.
No, definitely
Okay.
not.
That was it.
Okay, I have a question. One of the things I'd ask staff about on the site plan, specifically the one that's on the screen, PSP1, you've indicated there's a point of ingress and egress, full access at what is Sugar Mill Road.
Yes.
It's kind of a semi-unimproved road that goes between the existing frontage buildings on off of 426 Broadway. Obviously, my concern is that we're not really showing that. It's basically being shown as stabilized existing Sugar Mill Road. And I know there's a conflict in our SDO that basically says that it will be reconstructed to city standards. And just want to make sure that there is no conflict there, and that one of the recommendations I would be is I'd like to see that get changed in the plan here while it goes forward to the next level.
Okay. We discussed it with Bobby Wyatt, and the issue is the existing right-of-way that's there, we can't physically construct the road to city standards, excuse me.
Understood.
So you physically can't do it. So
Do you know what the width of that right-of-way is?
let me look off the top of my head. Let's see here.
One of the concerns I have is, just visually from the plans, is that that existing roadway is on private property, portions of it.
It's 30 feet.
It's 30 feet,
Yeah.
so.
It's basically a half right-of-way.
Your typical section then is, and your standard section, right now, you're using an 11-foot, so 22 and 24-foot with the curbs.
Right.
So, the issue obviously would be a sidewalk, but I'd still think it would be better for us to improve it to some standard than just leave it, number one, off on private property.
The issue is, Mr. Wright, is that you have to get permission to go on that private property to remove the existing roadway. And like I said, we vetted this pretty hard with Bobby Wyatt, and that was kind of the meat in the middle that we came to. We were prepared to pay for the road so that the city, once the right-of-way was acquired, could build it in the future. And Bobby came with the stabilized option so that it could be used, and that's
So that came from the city engineer.
yes, and it was something,
Yeah, I
like I
wasn't aware
said,
of
that
that.
we went back and forth with and discussed at length with him.
Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Yes, ma'am.
we also had that discussion in the final stages of the review, and we talked to Public Works that instead of being stabilized, should be paved to city standards. So despite not having the width of 50 feet, at least the asphalt and everything, the asphalt would be to city standards, not just stabilized. So I believe that that's going to be, and that's why we put in our land, in the site development order, that that language.
We can get back with Bobby again and
Okay.
and vet it out again.
At this
before-
point, we're not going to tell you how to build that road.
If we can build that road in the
Yeah.
30 feet, we will.
Yeah.
The issue
Um,
is trying to build 24-foot road and 30-foot. It's very difficult, if not impossible.
Mr. Lopez.
So what's the impact if you can't use that road?
I don't know that there is really any impact. It doesn't affect us either way.
From what I'm looking at, there should be an impact of egress or degress, correct? Am I correct?
Well, we still have a full access to the south on
Right.
Oviedo Boulevard.
But then you're making one area, one road for more congestion, and you already have the hospital coming up on the other side of that.
Okay, the right-of-way's there. We're fine
I-
making it where cars can go in and out of there. Like I said, it's just hard to do 24-foot of pavement, 2-foot curb on each
Understood.
side. That's 28 feet. You can't build it in 30 feet.
I think that my question is, right now, there's a disconnect between our site development order that we've as written right now, where it says it'll be paved to city standards and the plans. So all I'm looking for is to make some consistency there. You know, going forward, when you guys go to final, you know, when you actually get the drawings done and you're looking for construction before the permit's issued, you know, I think at that point, something can be worked out with, at that point, I'm going to put it to staff's hands to make sure that they come up with some solution. Because right now, it's, the way I looked at it, it's an unimproved road at this point. It's in some state of disarray or not, you know, and if you want to use it, and just stabilizing it is going to be a maintenance issue because it's going to fall back on the city. So, as Ms. Fruitt had said, you know, I think the idea is there that the city needs to come to help you come up with some way to determine how to come up with a paved surface on there, that's all.
And that's fine, like I said, I think it's been done.
Yeah.
The issue is it happened back in February.
Understood.
And Bobby's got a lot going on, so he might have forgotten exactly what the
Understood.
discussion
And like I said,
was.
we weren't privy to all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
I mean, I'm just seeing the disconnect at this point, so.
No problem.
And I think, I spoke with staff earlier on this today, that, like that crossing there, since they can't, and you'll correct me if I'm wrong on this, but it's really a right in, right out.
Right.
There is a median there, so the access, while it still has a full access, it's not a full intersection, but it still does provide some relief, though. So. Is there any other questions for the applicant? Thank you, Mr. Moorhead. We hear from staff now, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a request for the local planning agency to consider and make a recommendation for site development order number 464-16, Duelo Oviedo preliminary subdivision plan with a preliminary development plan for lots 3 and 4, phase 1A and 1B. The total land area is approximately 25.26 acres. The subject property is located on the north side of Oviedo Mall Boulevard and on the west side of West Broadway Street. The property owner is Oviedo Luxury Living Limited, and the applicant is the Klein Company, and the consultant is Madden, Moorhead, and Glunt. The subject property's future land use designation is mixed use, and its zoning district is planned unit development. The PUD is governed by the non-statutory development agreement approved by ordinance number 1591 on October 6, 2014. The Dwell PSP and lots 3 and 4 PDP were reviewed per the adopted NSDA 2006 Land Development Code and the 2025 Comprehensive Plan. Staff conclude that it complies with such agreement and the LDC and the Comprehensive Plan. The applicant proposes to subdivide the land into 6 parcels, creating 2 public rights-of-way, a continuation of Oviedo Medical Drive to the north of Oviedo Mall Boulevard, and a continuation and widening of Sugar Mill Road, perpendicular to West Broadway Street. Both right-of-ways have a width of 60 feet with on-street parallel parking and street trees. The development will have a full and main access from Oviedo Mall Boulevard and a secondary access from State Road 426. The project will be developed in phases and will include multifamily office
Hold up
and a
one sec.
hotel.
I'm sorry. We have a technical issue up here.
You're fine.
Okay, we're good. Thank you.
The applicant proposes to develop Phase 1A and Phase 1B of the development on lots 3 and 4, encompassing 13.39 acres. Phase 1 and Phase 1B will consist of 296 multifamily residential units. The proposed development will have 2 wet retention ponds, 1 dog park, and a recreation open space area and a clubhouse. The project also includes detached garages along the east and north sides of lots 3. The project shall have street trees along Oviedo Mall Boulevard, parking island trees, and as well as landscape buffer yards in the perimeter of the project. The applicant will also pay into the tree bank the equivalent of 91 replacement trees. For this project, the applicant has also requested the following deviations to the Land Development Code: to Section LDC 12.55 A2A landscaping island areas, a 22% deviation to the requirement that each landscape island area shall contain at least 1 large tree, to allow for 14 of the required 64 parking islands located on the east side of the project to contain 1 medium tree. The second deviation that will be requested is to LDC Section 12.5 A2A landscape island areas, a 38% deviation to the requirement that the minimum dimensions of any landscape island shall be 8 feet in width to allow for 14 terminal landscape islands to have a 5-foot minimum width. The reasons for the deviation request are to accommodate the landscaped islands with small trees adjacent to the proposed garages, and also to provide for sidewalks within some of the parking islands, improving the safety of pedestrians within the project. Transportation concurrency and environmental requirements have been satisfied. The site contains 4 wetland areas and upland buffers totaling approximately 4.2 acres. The applicant will mitigate 3 of the areas, comprising approximately 3.7 acres. Wetland number 4 will not be impacted at this phase. Potable water and sewer service will be provided by the City of Oviedo. Solid waste capacity is available through the Seminole County. Despite not being subject to the zoning in progress resolution number 3118-15 adopted by City Council on December 7, 2015, the subject development site design complies with many of the standards, and the architectural design will be reviewed at time of final engineering plans per the NSDA, and it shall comply with the LDC and the standards that are being developed right now at this time. City Council will consider resolution number 3226-16 on Monday, July 18, 2016. Staff recommends that LPA recommend approval of resolution number 3226-16. This concludes staff's presentation, and we're available for questions.
Thank you, Ms. Bradley. At this time, is there any questions from the board?
Of staff. Sheridan? Mr. Lopez? No.
Mr. Young?
Mr. Chair, with the 18-foot depth parking stalls, was that agreed to previously as opposed to the standard for 20-foot requirement? Because I know it's my understanding 18-foot is only for the compact across the site, and the site generally, from what I can tell, requires 18, which personally I'm okay with, but from a city standpoint, I wanted clarification from you on how we agreed to that.
I'm sorry. I believe that was provided per the development agreement,
Okay.
reviewed against the development agreement.
Okay.
Any other questions, Mr. Young? Or are you still waiting? Are you looking it up for him? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, they're looking it up.
In the minimum parking, it's stated in the development agreement, all parking spaces shall contain minimum rectangle area of 18 feet long and 9 feet wide.
Okay.
Okay.
And then one last, it's more of a, I guess, a general observation for staff. As I questioned the applicant earlier, whether or not photometrics have been looked at this point, it appears to me, looking at the preliminary landscape plan, that pretty much every island has a large oak planted in it. I just want to make sure that we're cautious moving forward with the photometrics and the placement of those light poles relative to those oaks, which I know are determined by our landscape code.
Sure, yeah, the photometric is provided at time of site development order and final engineering plans.
Sure.
So we will have to take a look at that.
I just know that we have a history also of looking at the photometric without the landscape incorporated.
Yeah.
So that was it.
Okay. My question kind of goes towards the deviations. I know one of the, number 2 specifically is the 38% deviation, so that the landscape islands should be reduced down to 5 feet, so that a smaller tree, well, in both cases, both are indicating smaller trees, versus planting large trees now, as per the requirement, correct? I mean, these trees are going to grow. What was the thought process city staff had in allowing that to happen? What difference does it make whether they put a small tree that grows later into a large tree or put a large tree in now?
Well, the large tree has a possibility of going much wider in terms of canopy and the trunk, whereas a small medium tree doesn't go so much.
So are we talking then a type of tree versus or just in this case a,
No, it's a size of the tree. I mean, yeah, the type, because we have in our land, not in our land development code, but the Florida-friendly list, which we use in our, to review all the landscape plans. You have large, medium, and small trees. So they have certain characteristics that put them apart in terms of how much that they can grow, and of course that you have all the pruning and, you know,
Sure.
maintenance. But
so
a
we're, in
large
this case,
oak-
we're not necessarily referring to a caliper size at this moment. We're referring to as the style of tree and the future size of this tree.
The future size of the
Okay.
tree, because the caliper size that we require, both medium and large trees, the minimum to be planted is 2.5 inches.
Thank you. Now going back to my question about the conflict that we have between the SDO right now and the language for the paving of the city standards, okay? I mean, I understand the applicant's concern is that it's a limited size right-of-way and we probably can't put in the same typical section. What would be the process the city would have to undertake to make sure that that moves forward? And my suggestion is that we make the language the same in the plans on the PSP that's in the SDO, according to that. But is there anything that we need to do as far as the direction of this board to give the city direction to move forward and come up with a solution?
Well, we have thought about that too. We know, like the applicant has commented on it, that we don't have the full width. We can negotiate maybe, and that we'll see when we have the engineering plans, to have easements for sidewalks, because we have the width of the pavement is enough for lanes, right? It's 30. So you can have both lanes, but you don't have space for sidewalks. So we can maybe try to have some type of negotiation with the owners
Just
on
identify
the
yourself
side.
again.
That's okay. Chad Moorhead, Madam Moorhead and Stokes. The issue is we can do 24 foot of asphalt. It's trying to put the curb and gutter in there as well. So we can do 24, have 3 foot on each side of it to work in. So that can be done. It's adding curb and gutter and sidewalks. That's what we don't have room to do.
Understood. And like I said, I understand your dilemma in a sense like this, and if you got advice from the city engineer that basically just said stabilize the road, obviously that would be in conflict with what we would think. So
Right.
I'm really trying to figure out how to give it back to them, put it on our onus to help you come up with a solution. So,
I appreciate it.
so
Thank you.
So our first suggestion would be to approach both property owners and check whether they would agree to have a sidewalk easement on their property. So that would be something that we have done. I mean, there are many projects where you don't have the sidewalk completely on the public right-of-way, and we have sidewalk easements. So that would be the first approach. I believe that it would be the easiest one. Of course, that it will depend on their goodwill to do that or not. The second one would be to try to buy from them that slice of land that it's missing.
okay, I see this. I mean, again, from a motion perspective, I mean, my thoughts would, I'd like to see the language on the plans match the SDO. The stuff that we're talking about here, we can't add necessarily. It has nothing to do with the approval process.
No.
That would be a secondary recommendation from the board that we would make to staff to move forward and come up with a solution. So.
Okay.
Can I add one more thing? Yeah, Chad Moorhead and
Sure.
Madam Moorhead and Stokes. I'd just like to ask that it not be conditioned on something that sidewalks and stuff, and getting with the adjacent property owner so that doesn't delay
Again,
us.
we can't do that. So
Okay,
the que-
that's
the
what I
question-
thought I heard
yeah.
you said. I just wanted to make sure.
The question I have, and I asked you in the beginning, was if you had any conflict with the way the SDO is written with that statement that's part of the site development order, and it's, read it. Exactly.
Yeah, I just read it again, and
Line
it says
11.
2 city standards, so
Yeah,
I
so-
would guess that we do. We
So
would ask
again, as
maybe
far
that
as I'm
it's conditioned
concerned,
on
if
a
the city
24-foot
tells you
access.
that you can put a 24-foot paved road through there without a sidewalk, that's the standard that they're giving you, so that's the way I would look at it, and like I said, we're not making you look at putting a full roadway section, we can't tell you that.
Yeah, just one.
I just want to be able to give staff recommendation how to make you, help fix that, so.
Just to confirm with the applicant, because the condition is Sugar Mill Road shall be paved to city standards. It's not that shall be to city standard, because we know that we don't have the right-of-way. So it cannot be a condition for your, but we can try to solve that.
Any additional questions? Seeing none at this time, I'll ask for the board's pleasure.
Make a motion to adopt resolution 3226-16 as recommended by staff.
Second.
Second. Again, the only change that I would ask that be put on there is that the language on PSP-1 matches for what our site development order number 11 would be.
I agree with you.
Okay.
Okay? All right. So the motion has been changed that we would like to have recommend approval, and that the note that references the stabilized existing Sugar Mill Road would be changed to match what's in the site development order prior to going to council.
Yeah, we can do that prior to city council.
Thank you. Copy the call. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Nay. Motion passes 4-0. Again, this item will be considered by City Council on July 18th, 2016. Good luck with your project.
Good luck.
Next item on our agenda is resolution number 3228-16, Central Park Townhomes Restated Non-Statutory Development Agreement and Preliminary Subdivision Plan. Since you were already here once, I'm assuming you're here again for the second one.
Chad Moorhead, Mad Moorhead and Stokes, 431 East Ratio Avenue, Maitland, 32751. Central Park Townhomes is a project that was originally approved back in January of '08. Believe it even got started under construction, clearing, grading, then as everybody knows, the economy went south and it stalled. It was originally approved for 14,300 square foot of office and 58 townhome units. What we've come with tonight is eliminating the office and proposing 68 townhome units. Have a minimum 1,600 square foot livable, and hope that you would recommend approval. Again, I'm here to answer any questions. Yes, sir.
Mr. Lopez.
Why the change all of a sudden?
I guess demand. I have Tom McNamara with me. He's the owner of the property.
Okay.
But I believe it's demand, and lack of demand for office, I believe.
Any other questions, Mr. Lopez?
No, I'll think of something in a few minutes.
Mr. Sheridan?
I'm good for this moment.
Mr. Young?
I'm good.
Okay, well, good on me then. The question I have is, it comes down to the parking, how it's calculated. There's 44 units that have been identified as single car, garage, single driveway parking.
All right.
How many of those, and you can't answer this question, maybe Mr. McNamara can, or out of those 44 units, how many of those units are greater than two-bedroom units?
We know they all through too. Yeah, I don't know at this point.
Okay. And here's my, I know the way the calculation was done, it was based on the requirement per the development order or the development agreement, in this case, if there was one in place, that basically states that it's three parking spaces per unit.
Yes.
65% of the lots are two-unit, in this case, two parking spots. And then the other 24 units are calculated at four spaces, two in the garage, which are only useful for those 24 units. So my concern is that if any of these 44 units have more than three cars, there's going to be an issue with the parking. You guys did the plans and designed it according to the statement of 3 units or 3 parking spaces per unit. But But my question is what happens when there's an overflow? You know, you got reduced lanes because of the 11-foot lanes, and now, we're going to end up with cars parking on the parkway in a sense, or out in the road. So my question really, and you can't answer it in a sense, was how many of those 44 units really potentially have more than 2 bedrooms, where they potentially could have more than 2 cars? I know there's nothing you can do about it, so I'm bringing it up just to see if you had the answer to the question. I'll direct staff later on some of the questions I have that I spoke to them earlier about how we calculate this stuff. You spoke about the, echoing Mr. Lopez's question earlier, was that, when we first approved this site, it was a nice concept to be able to mix use for what the future land use is for this property, that we would have the mix of commercial and residential. So it's a little disappointing to see it come back. It is within your zoning classification, so it meets the criteria. We understand that, but for it to come back differently is a personal choice, is a little disappointing. So the last question I have is the site development order. Again, we have a disconnect in the site development order with what's on the plans. In this case, it's the other way around. On your PSP sheet, which I believe is that one that's on displayed right there, number 29 talks about the townhouse architectural features shall comply with the architectural standards at the time of development. Our site development order basically indicates that there's an exhibit that was prepared, Exhibit B. I think it was a architectural rendering of a building. That's on there. Yeah. In our page 63.
It's part of the attachment number 3 on the site, on the memo.
I guess I just want to make sure, again, it goes back to making sure the language is consistent. Yeah, I got that. It's the language in our SDO, that's the way it's written, right, is number 4, and it's on page 6 of 17 of the SDO. Basically, under architectural design, our language says that the townhouse architectural features shall be equal to the architectural rendering shown in Exhibit B, or the architectural features shall comply with the architectural standards in existence at the time of development. So, so again, what I'm going to ask staff is I prefer just to keep it the way you have it written in your plans and leave it at that manner. So that's, want to make sure you're aware of that.
Well, I'm at a loss right here because for some reason my plans don't have that. So let me walk over here and
don't have the...
For some reason, what I have in my plan right here doesn't have that note on there, so I want to see exactly.
You can have that.
All I have is the 8.5 by 11.
So this is the language that's stated in the plans here. And like I said, the language in our SDO is a little bit different. It's giving you the option, or it's giving the option of the exhibit that's presented to us tonight in our package versus...
Well, that's what's in your package tonight is what we would like.
Okay.
I think there's negotiation back and forth on the architecture with staff, and that's why it's in there. So we'd like to keep it as is in SDO.
Okay. I'm going to direct the staff real quick, because my conversation with you earlier today was that while this was close, the exhibit was close, it doesn't necessarily meet all the criteria. Is that correct?
Well, the thing is that the only thing that we had was that figure here. So we didn't have any plans, we didn't have any dimensions. So it's very difficult to check exactly all the percentages. So what we did is we worked with the applicant, and it appears to it has a lot of brick, which is one of the requirements, but there is a percentage for that. So we didn't have the chance to calculate it. You have more than two materials. You have besides brick, you have stucco, you have siding, and you have brick. The other thing that also we discussed with the applicant, and the applicant offered some solution, was to the side of the townhomes, that now it's also considered a primary facade. So they propose to have, to include some more brick on the side, on the footing and around the main door, and also to change and put very stucco and siding on the side. So there were some things that were achieved, and I believe that the intent is there, but we don't have today how to tell you whether they are completely compliant or not, because we don't have all the calculations. We don't have the documents to do that.
Okay.
And anyway, the architectural design order, it is usually either at the time of the final engineering plans, or it can also come at the time of building plans. So at that time, we will have to compare what it's being proposed, and then with some all the dimensions. If City Council and you recommend that we keep the language, if it is equal to that, it will be compliant because it will have been accepted. If that's not what City Council will approve, then of course that any type of deviation will have to be dealt with. So that's what it's going to happen.
Are you, at this point then, because staff recommended, that we recommend the adoption of this?
Yeah, we believe that
are you confident that the language that you have here gives you the flexibility that you're not locking yourselves into something that may or may not meet the standards later?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That was a request from the applicant,
okay.
And we agreed to put in the development agreement for the board's consideration, both for your and of course for City Council. So that's going to be a decision of the board, okay. In terms of which language, if they keep that language or if there is anything different.
From an order of precedence, I mean, will it be a problem if we don't change the language in the plan to match the SDO? Will the SDO cover?
Well, first of all, I think that both have to be consistent. The SDO and the plans, they have to be consistent.
All right. The reason I'm asking that is because if we use the same language, that exhibit doesn't exist in the plans, then that would have to be added to the plan. So I'm trying to avoid extra work, but that's that purpose of the question. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's not that it doesn't exist on the plans. It's on the development agreement, and the plans go with the development agreement. It's one whole thing.
Okay. It's just putting the language on the plans, referencing another exhibit that's outside of
we
the
also
document.
we always
could
prefer
be difficult
that.
and challenging. So
yeah.
I don't have a problem personally with keeping it the way you asked. Staff feels confident. It's just making sure that the language is consistent. So.
Yeah, because if it's not consistent, it's the development agreement that is the code.
Tom McNamara, Central Avenue Townhomes, 400 Cane Court, Oviedo, Florida. We worked extensively with staff in the redesign of this project, and one of the sticking points, and the reason I'm replacing Chad is because I worked on the architectural features since it's really not an engineering issue. The existing development order is really pre-exist any architectural standards for townhomes in the city. We could basically build under that order 58 townhomes with no standards. The application was applied for this PSP prior to the December 7th meeting when the city put a zoning in progress amendment in, or whatever you want to call it. The city still does not have an architectural standard for townhomes. So it's what Genevieve was speaking about. We might be 65 versus 66%. I don't even know if it's 66% because they don't have the standard yet. So conceptually, we worked with them and the standards they're working on to come up with a product that looked much different than this one had started, to add more brick, to add more articulation, to add more features and more hardscapes and everything else into the product, to work with them as best we could. And that's the best way we had that, was not to say it, the best approach was not to say it's going to meet the city standard, because the city doesn't have a standard, right? Was to just attach an exhibit, and here's a picture and it's going to look like this. So what Genevieve was speaking to, I believe, is it 66 or 65 or 64? They can't tell because it's not scaled. But yet, I can't even tell you that it's going to meet or it doesn't because you don't have a 66% to meet. So that's kind of the catch-22 we're in. So we put forth the best effort we could to come up with a standard that we had. So that's kind of the backstory to the whole architecture.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Sure.
Tom, we, despite not being a written standard, what we have for the zoning agreement, for the zoning progress, are all the booklets. The booklets, they spell out some percentage. So that's what we have been taking into account. So that's why we don't have, like I said, because we didn't have all the dimensions to calculate. And we have already applied these standards to a recent project that was approved by City Council, and it had, and that's what I told Mr. Wright, it had deviations to them, and they were approved. So that's the idea. We are in a transient situation, and we are trying to work with the applicant to meet the goal, both for the city and for them. So that's what we are trying to do. So I believe that we worked with them, they changed some things, and it meets the intent. Now, I cannot answer you if it would be completely compliant.
Again, I'm not really looking for that. I'm looking for the fact that, I got one statement by the applicant, and I got another one in the SDO, and I just want to make sure that I identify the conflict and come up with the best solution I'm not going to sit here and make the judgment of whether the architectural standards are to snuff or not. That's staff's responsibility at this point. So I'm looking at a way just to make sure that what's represented in the plans, that statement locks you into, at this point, it locks you into using whatever the determined standards are at that time. That's what it says in your plans. The SDO says something different, and I just want to make sure they're consistent. So.
We'll change the note on the plan.
Yeah.
What the SDO says.
And that's really, again, I don't have any objections to the Exhibit B. So
as they were going back and forth,
Yeah.
that note had gotten on there and it just didn't get changed
yeah,
once.
so that's all I'm looking for. So.
But it is on the...
At this point, is there any other question for the applicant before he sits?
No.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Moore. Sorry to make you get up again. Okay, we'll hear from staff now, please.
Good evening again. This is a request to the LPA to consider Resolution 322616, an amendment and restatement of non-statutory development agreement and associated preliminary subdivision plan for Central Park Townhomes. The property consists of 7 acres and is located west side of Central Avenue, approximately 2,400 feet north of Mitchell Hammock. The applicant and owner is Central Avenue Townhomes LLC and Oviedo Business Center. The property is designated downtown mixed use on the official land use map and mixed use district Central Avenue and mixed use district multifamily on the official zoning map. On January 7, 2008, City Council adopted Resolution 175708, approving a mixed-use development on the subject property. It had an approved development consisted of 2 commercial office buildings and 58 townhomes. The City Council also granted 2 different extensions to the non-statutory development agreement, one of a 1-year extension of April 15, 2013, and a 2-year extension of February 17 of 2014. On October 13 of 2015, the applicant submitted an application to modify the NSDA with an associated PSP for the Central Park Townhomes. Staff verified that the PSP property reflects the standards of the LDC and comprehensive plans and those provided within the NSDA. The city attorney also reviewed the NSDA and provided comments that they were addressed by the applicant. The applicant also addressed concerns in regards to transportation and environmental. Now the owner is proposing to remove the commercial portion of the development and increase the number of townhome units from the previously approved 58 units to 68 townhomes. The proposed community will be gated. An attachment 3 depicts this proposed site plan layout. The NSDA standards will remain the same as the original approved in 2008, except the ones listed on the staff report. The new standards were negotiated as part of the amendment and restated development agreement, and staff recommend approval of those standards. Staff reviewed the NSDA with associated PSP and requirements of the LDC and comprehensive plans and recommends approval. The city attorney has reviewed the subject NSDA and also recommends approval. As we previously discussed, the zoning in progress was established in December 7 of 2015 for architectural standards. Therefore, it does not apply to the subject property since the application was submitted on October 13, 2015. The City Council will consider this resolution at its meeting of July 18, and it is recommended that the LPA recommend approval of Resolution 322816, non-statutory development agreement with associated preliminary subdivision plan for Central Park Townhomes. This concludes my presentation. At this time, I'll be glad to answer any questions from the board.
Thank you. This time, is there any questions for staff by the board? Sheridan? Mr. Young?
No, sir.
Is it a yes or no?
No.
Oh, sorry. I didn't understand. Okay. My question for staff goes back to what I spoke with the applicant about. When we have the potential for 65% of the units that could be greater than 2 bedrooms, and they only have 2 parking spaces allocated to each site, to me, that's an issue. You know, that's a city issue. It's not the applicant's issue at this point, because the development agreement, I understand, is set up that they can use 3 spaces per unit, and that's what they based it on the fact that they did it on the overall count. So even the 2-car garages, you know, while they can have 4 spaces, they are only usable for those 24 lots. They can't be used by common access to anybody else. So they gave another 24 spaces outside the property around the inside interior for overflow at this point. So you have 24 overflow spaces for 44 units. At some point, and I don't know if I can get the answer to this, but I'd like an opinion from staff, in a sense, how we can do that. I mean, to me, if we're gonna specify 3 spaces per unit, then those ones that only have 2, then there needs to be 44 space. That would be my logic, in a sense, that there is 1 space available, so there's 3 per unit.
Well, one thing
because
that
we can make the applicant can make the numbers work. They provide sufficient parking, but I don't think logically it makes sense for us in the long term, especially in a section that has a reduced pavement section.
Well, one of the other things that we are also reviewing in our land development code is parking standards. And we are, along with all the architectural design, we are proposing urban design standards, which also deal with the siting, location, layout, including parking. So we are researching a lot of other documents. Even for the dwell, we used, in the development agreement, a study by the Urban Land Institute that establishes the number of parking spaces for various types of developments, including multifamily, which was their case, that is much less than what we have today. And having that in mind, we are proposing in our townhome parking requirement to be, according to the number of bedrooms, -1, with a minimum of 2. So one house with 1 bedroom would have to have 2 parking spaces. One house with 3 bedrooms would have to have at a minimum 2, 3 minus 1. So that's how we based the fact that we are recommending approval of this particular one based on that new paradigm in terms of parking. Because sometimes we tend to value and to put parking that it's a little bit more than maybe it's necessary. So there is a trend today, and also it's validated by the type of studies and the market for these type of townhomes. So I don't know whether that would really be the case, but I believe that the tendency is to downsize in everything. So into the townhomes, so we would be consistent with the new standards that we are proposing. So that
Okay.
was
Well,
one
we
of the
can-
reasons.
Obviously, this may be a further discussion,
Okay.
board to staff, but Sheridan?
I agree. I think it's definitely further discussion. And while I understand the calculations that staff are making, I'm in a state, they simply don't work. Living in another community that has, and simply stated, I live in a 3-bedroom, 2-bath townhome with a 1-car garage, 1-car driveway with 4 occupants in it.
4 cars?
4 cars. We are, well, 3 cars and a scooter now, but 4 vehicles.
Understood.
We are searching for spaces from time to time. Now, that was our choice. But the 3 minus, or the bed minus 1 calculation simply does not work. I'll go back to numerous comments from council members. We are a kids in cul-de-sacs community, and while we all may be looking to downsize, or many may be looking to downsize, 3 minus 1 does not work because families have kids and cars, and 3 minus 1, 4 minus 1 does not necessarily work. Those are our standards. I don't know how we make people follow what we want or what we think should work. We have standards in place, but living in a community right now, those standards in minus 1 does not work.
Well, I believe that that's going to be, like I said, this is what is being proposed for a change. So that will be, we will discuss that with LPA and City Council, and then we can discuss that, and you can make a recommendation to change it.
Then the next rounds of land development code reviews and stuff, that would be something that we could discuss?
Yeah,
Okay.
and we are hoping to do that very shortly.
Understood.
So you have the chance to, we'll have the chance to discuss that, and
I
for you
think
to
that
make
is going
recommendations.
forward. I don't know what the solution today is. We have standards in place, and I don't know that we can hold anybody to other standards that we want because of current standards in place, but I do have those concerns as well.
Okay. Any other questions for staff? Again, the only thing I would, when the motion comes, is that my recommendation is that we add the language to, that the applicants agree to, that the language regarding the architectural standards will match what's the language in the SDO.
TSP and the SDO.
At this point, pleasure of the
Okay.
board.
I'll make a motion to adopt Resolution 3226-16 based on making the changes that Mr. White just made in regards to the language.
I'll second.
Mr. Young? Staff good with the recommendation and the motion and the recommendation?
To make both match and put in the
Thank
in the
you.
plans the same type of language. Sure.
This time we'll call the vote. All those in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 4-0. Thank you, gentlemen. Good luck. This time, that concludes all of our public meeting items. We do not have any public hearings scheduled for tonight. Next item would be discussion items. Number 5, we are canceled for August 9th. And item 6 would be, imagine this is a reminder from Patty to make sure that we get our Form 1s completed and filled in.
Please send them in.
Which version? Okay, any other discussion items? Not on the agenda? Okay. Our future meeting dates are set up for Tuesday, July 12th, 2016, Tuesday, July 26th, 2016, and Tuesday, August 23rd, 2016. Does anybody know of any conflicts that they may have at this time? Okay, should you have any conflicts, obviously let Patty know as soon as possible. Thank you, Mr. Sheridan, tonight for
Yeah, sorry about that.
rushing to get here so that we could have a meeting.
You couldn't get that scooter going fast enough.
At this time, that concludes all of our business, so I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Young,
Second.
Mr. Lopez, all in favor?
Aye.
I don't think anybody's opposed. Thank you.
I just think told me not to shut it down.
Yeah.